This is my homemade Snowmobile Camper, which I will be taking on a solo overnight journey. This time, I'll be heating it exclusively with solar energy. Stay tuned. As I traveled to pick up the camper, something trailside caught my eye. Coywolf tracks in the snow, leading to a pile of ruffled turkey feathers. Well, I think it's safe to assume that at least one wild turkey will be sleeping warm tonight, within a coywolf's belly. This year, I've noticed a rise in the turkey population, which has also brought in the pack predators. Although I've been calling them coywolves, they're more accurately described as eastern coyotes, larger than their western counterparts, but not as big as a full-blooded wolf. I was heading into their territory now. Like I mentioned earlier, I will be heating my insulated camper using solar energy, stored inside these lithium power stations, gathered with these 100-watt panels, and used by a small electric heater. Let the journey begin. It was midday when I stopped for lunch. I took advantage of the short break and the sunshine to top up my power station. I'd like to thank Jackery for sponsoring this episode. As someone who does most of their work off-grid, I've been using Jackery products for over a year now to light up my pop-up cabin, run some of my power tools, pump up my trailer tires, pump water, recharge my batteries, and tonight I'll be using the Explorer 1000 to heat my camper. As you can see, it has multiple output ports. This means that you can use the Explorer 1000 to simultaneously power your computer, charge your phone, or run your coffee maker. Using the Jackery power station and solar panels has replaced my gasoline generator in most cases. Why? Because it's quieter, lighter, cleaner, and cheaper to run. Gone are the days when I had to buy gas in town and then lug it into the bush to refill the old generator. Because with the Explorer 1000, all I have to do is set up my SolarSaga panels and the power station recharges itself, for free, with zero emissions and zero maintenance. So you can understand why it was so easy for me to make the switch to Jackery products. Since their lithium power stations don't need to idle like a gas generator, they only use power when they need to, making them way more efficient. The 100-watt portable solar panel was designed to plug directly into the power station. And by using this special adapter, you can even connect two panels together to double their power input. If you'd like to check Jackery out for yourself, I've linked their products in the video description below. Anyway, after a quick bite to eat and a full recharge, I hit the trail once again. This is where I'd be settling in for the night. On tonight's menu, bacon. Make that candied bacon with Canadian maple syrup. Fresh air, beautiful scenery, and good food. What more could I ask for? For those of you who are wondering, the camper is vented in both gables, and there is also a fresh air intake above the door. With the camper set up for the night and some warm food in my belly, I went on a short walk to explore my surroundings. Coywolf tracks, an entry point into their world. Out of curiosity, I followed them in. When I was a child, my greatest fear was being alone in a dark forest, like this one. But I soon realized that it wasn't the forest that I was afraid of, or the darkness. In fact, I often found them to be comforting, as I do now. In actuality, I was afraid of the unknown, of not knowing where I was, how to find my way, or what I might encounter while out there on my own. Of course, these are all healthy fears. The forest, although beautiful, can be unforgiving, especially to the foolhardy, ill-prepared, and ill-educated. So, I could either try to avoid my fear of the unknown, or I could learn to know what I did not. Several decades have now passed since I was a child, and I've had time to grow in my knowledge of the forest, its animals, plants, trees, geography, and seasons. I've also learned how to utilize my surroundings and to work with my own two hands, developing my skill set and understanding my limitations. So now, as I walk alone in the snowy darkness, I feel at peace, because I know this forest, I know myself, and I know my Heavenly Father. By following these tracks, I can also know a little more about the animals that made them, which I find fascinating. Well, I'm all settled in for the night. At the foot of the bed, you'll see I've got some gear, and as well I've got the two Jackeries. The 500 watt power station here, or the Explorer 500, powers the Edison bulb, and as well it recharges my camera batteries throughout the day. Since I'm filming in the cold, I have to recharge my batteries continuously because the cold depletes them quickly. So this 500 watt power station has been a lifesaver for me, and it's allowed me to document what I'm doing, which I'm happy about. And then I've got the Explorer 1000, which powers this 200 watt space heater. And since this is a 1000 watt hour power station, that means it can run this space heater for 5 hours continuously, which is great news because I likely won't need to run it that long since this camper does retain the heat quite well. As a matter of fact, I've had the heat off for a little bit, and it's still 22 degrees Celsius in here, and it's -5 degrees Celsius outside. So the reason why this camper can retain the heat so well is because we've insulated it well. The walls have 2.5 inches of foam board insulation. The roof is 4.5 inches thick with insulation, and the floor is insulated as well. For each snowmobile camper trip that I go on, I always try to experiment with a different heating method. So for my first trip, I heated rocks over the fire, placed them in ammo cans, and put them inside the camper. For the second trip, I heated water over the fire, and I filled some military canteens up, put them in the camper as well, and they were about the same as the rocks. They heated the camper for most of the night, but eventually they lost their heat, which wasn't too big of a deal because this camper is insulated. For my third trip, I used a copper coil heating system, which worked extremely well. But for this trip, I wanted to heat the camper strictly with solar energy. So I've used my solar panels to replenish my power station, which in turn heats the space heater. I'd have to say my favorite thing about this heating method is that I don't need to build a fire to generate the heat that I need. And that saves me time. Whenever I do these camper trips, I'm traveling all day long. It takes me forever to set up the shots, to return and get the cameras, and just to drive to where I need to go. So that takes me all day. So by the time I get to where I need to go, the sun's usually already going down, and it's always been a race to build a fire, to get the heat generated, to get this camper warmed up for the nighttime. This time it was a lot more leisurely. I just pulled in at the end of the day. I cooked my food on my little cook stove, and I had my space heater running while I was making supper. So by the time I was done, the camper was all nice and warm, hopped in, and here I am now. So this has been by far the easiest method, which I really appreciate. And it's also great that it's renewable. As long as the sun is shining, I'm able to recharge my power station. Even on a cloudy day, it can recharge, just not as fast. And I can heat the camper, so that's really neat. So I'm going to turn in for the night, and I'll tell you how I did in the morning. Good morning, everyone. What I ended up doing last night was turning the heater back on and warming the camper up to 22 degrees Celsius. Then I turned the heater off and went to sleep for the night. And as I slept, the camper gradually lost its heat, of course, because I wasn't heating the space. But that was fine because I was in my sleeping bag at that point. But when I woke up at 7 a.m., the temperature had dropped to 8 degrees Celsius inside, and it's minus 8 degrees Celsius outside. So when I woke up, I turned the heater back on and warmed the space back up. So now I'm comfortable enough to get up out of my sleeping bag, get ready for the day, and get my gear together as well. As people have been watching my Snowmobile Camper series, I've gotten several comments from people saying, you know, you've got this really nice insulated camper. Why don't you just get a good quality sleeping bag and not worry about heating the camper space, because all you need to worry about is heating your sleeping bag, and that'll keep you warm. And of course that's true, but the reason why I want to heat the actual inside of the camper as well is because at 5 o'clock it gets dark. So as soon as I jump in here, there's things that I want to do before I actually go to sleep. I want to write, I want to read, or listen to an audiobook and get my gear ready for the next day. And so as I've warmed the inside of this space, it's made it possible for me to be up and moving still. And so I only have to get back into my sleeping bag when I want to, when it's time to sleep. And then I can turn the heat off and have a good night's sleep. So the whole idea behind building this camper was that I wanted to make winter camping as comfortable as possible. I've put in my time. I've done my camping in the snow in quinzees and snow huts. I've slept in minus 20 degree and minus 30 degree temperatures. And it is possible with the right gear, but you have to be inside your sleeping bag for the entire night. And I didn't want to be all cooped up like that when I built this camper. So that's why I heat the entire inside, just to make it comfortable. If you have to use an axe to get into your frozen clothing in the morning, you just might be a northerner. Some trail mix for my fair-feathered friends. If you're interested in seeing more Snowmobile Camper videos like this one, I've added a link to the playlist in the video description below. Until next time, my friends, stay safe, be well, and God bless. To film this episode, I think I spent just as much time setting up my shots and running back to retrieve the camera as I did driving the snowmobile.
GoPro, start recording.
Anyway, you get the idea.